Okay, so I've been introducing everybody through books, but I am actually introducing Diane Schwindt through this artifact, which she found when we were on our trip back from Rhode Island. I had no idea what it was. I thought it looked like a piece of cheese with holes in it, so I thought it's either for making cheese, or I said, I don't know, maybe you catch mice with it. Of course, I was completely wrong, and she will let you know what it is. I just want to say Diane probably has the most incredible research library on Long Island for historic artifacts, colonial history, women's history, not only how to make something, how to make it from scratch, how to fix it, how to repair it, how to redo it. She has an incredible walking mind, and her collection, as most of you have seen, is upstairs in the showcase. And I think, Diane, you may have said you are willing to talk to people after, about the implements in that case, because they're all from the 18th century, some early 19th century. In any case, I'm going to just hand it over to Diane. Those of you who know her are very familiar that she is very entertaining, and I think this discussion about lice, lard, and lust will be probably one of the most entertaining talks she's ever given. So, thanks.
After following these great women, this will definitely be a little bit different. As you can see, I have a lot of hands-on items that I'm going to be talking about. Laura and I, we went to a conference in Rhode Island. What?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Just try to aim for the mic.
All right, can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
It's never been a problem. Laura and I went to a conference over the weekend, and I think there were like 8 speakers, roughly about 8 speakers. And we had speakers here today, and I've gone to other conferences about women during the revolutionary time period, colonial time period. And the one thing that's missing, can anybody tell me? Can anybody tell me what's missing? No, there's always food in my case. I'm the historic cook. But what's missing is the woman. We talk about things around her, we talk about areas, we talk about history of families, we talk about facts and figures, but we don't talk about the actual woman herself. Did anybody, when they got up this morning, look in the mirror? Come on, you all looked in the mirror at some point this morning. You know, it's, well, at my age, it's not pretty anymore. So, I wanted to focus more about body. And I was at the end of this table over here, and somebody mentioned the word raw, and I was like, that's a really good word, I like that. The raw reality of this time period for women. We're not talking about how far they had to walk, was it gravel, what the clothing they were wearing, or some other things. So I want to go over some facts and figures. I, too, have a list. There are many, I want to just kind of set the stage. There were many decisions that were made before women decided to go off into to be camp followers, to follow their husbands or their families. The average woman got married. Anybody want to take a guess?
12.
The legal age was 12. The average was between 18 and 22. Still young, but not horrible. The numbers of birth these women would have would be anywhere between 7 to 10 and up. Bearing children every 18 months, so basically every 2 years, you are getting pregnant. Which, remember all these kind of facts, you don't have to remember the facts, but remember, because this is going to come up in a little bit later. 1 out of 3 babies, okay, 1 to 3 babies out of 10 babies never reached 1 year. Under the age of 5, only half survived. 6 out of 10 would never see their teens. Disease, took a lot of lice, scarlet fever, smallpox, and so on. If there was an outbreak, 90% of the children would die. 90%. This is what these women were going through. Don't forget the political part that's going on behind the scenes here, the conversations that are taking place. Their husbands are about to walk out the door, they have farms, and all of this is going on in their daily life. Hemorrhaging, all the things that are related to birth. One out of every 10 women would die giving birth to a child. 2, 4, 6. 2 people from that table, 2 people from that table, 2 people from that table, 2 people from that table. This is what women were enduring while all of this was going on in the outside world, outside their front door. What is the most common question about women during this time period? We're talking about bodies. No. How long did they live? I'm going to get to that. Well, women can do incredible things. How much work? We do everything, and we're still doing it. My father, 92, we were sitting at the kitchen table and said to me, "Oh, I know how you feel." I said, "You do?" I mean, I'm a single mom, working 2 jobs, creating all of this and so on. So it's like 3 jobs. I said, "But when you came home, Dad, Mom had the sheets changed, the grocery shopping done, and dinner was on the table." So I'm kind of figuring out, how do we relating to that? So the average lifespan of a woman was between around 33 years to about 55, somewhere in there. But 1 out of 10 would die giving birth to a child. So now think about it. You're pregnant almost your whole adult life. You have 7 to 10 children. You're starting around 20. By 30, now you've had at least 12 pregnancies, maybe somewhere in there, 10 pregnancies. And how long do you live? Was the question. And you're doing all the physical work behind it. So the most common question I get is menstruating. What did women do? You rolled up rags, you had an apron that kind of went around. There were ways that women dealt with this, but they were pregnant most of their adult life, or nursing. So that kind of took that problem and kind of made it a little more bearable. So I'm wondering if I put these in the wrong order. Here we go. Women, when I do historic cooking, I'm going back a little bit earlier. What is the one thing I don't find a lot of? Recipe books. Thank you, Kimberly. Okay, if Kimberly gets 2, she has to sit on her hands. Why aren't there a lot of recipes or receipts from this time period? I mean, there's a lot, but there should be more. What? They couldn't read and write. They were in the kitchen. They couldn't read and write, but they could read for religious purposes, and writing was a skill set and listed as an accomplishment. Also, just getting back to the historic cooking, you don't find a lot of recipes because the average person, it was handed from one person to the next person. We do find a Diane Fish, who is another historic cook, she's the other Diane, is that we'll be reading recipes or receipts and we'll see that there's something major missing from that because it was just common. They don't say peel the egg if you're making egg salad because it's a given. Medical during this time period. The average woman would have a container with possibly maggots in it, and that was to eat the dead tissue off of, some place that was damaged, and leeches. That would also suck that bad blood out. It helped with fever, inflammation, and dental pain. So let's think about that leech with dental pain. Kind of cool, right? That's why people don't go out in public with me. Most women were responsible for keeping up the farm, the gardens, as we were told before. These everyday tasks were women while they were pregnant or nursing, And there's that political thing going on, the Revolutionary War. I want to go through my clothing in a little bit. So I just, again, I want to talk about being a woman. I was doing the research, and I came across this item. Now, I believe somebody saw this I had this on, and they thought it was a whistle. That'd be cool. Anybody want to take a guess what this might be? No, it has like a little stopper on top. No. Yeah.
Could need a bigger necklace.
That's not there. That's in my pocket. It is for a cloth that will contain some drops of blood and a bit of molasses. Because every woman, or a lot of women, had lice. And this was to catch the lice.
Oh.
Or fleas. The average person had lice and fleas. So they would, but if I sent you to Walmart to go buy one of those rubber bracelets to keep the mosquitoes off, you wouldn't blink. Think about it. So this is during this time period, and I explained to somebody a little bit earlier. We look at history through our lenses, but you have to almost think, going back a couple hundred years. If I said 200 years forward from now, most of you in this room had children, you took them to the dentist, they put metal on their teeth and ratchet them into place. How barbaric. 200 years from now, they're going to be looking at things at this time period and think it's barbaric. This was the norm during that time, 1770. So then I came across this item, and it's not a knitting needle, so I'm just letting you know. But this was for women would have larger wigs or hair. And it allowed them to scratch areas that they couldn't get to. And this is a real historic item, that it's a reproduction. When I do get a reproduction made, it's the people that do work for Williamsburg and Mount Vernon, so they're accurate to size and shape. All these items you could look at in a little bit. Any questions? Diane, shush.
What was that called?
And you know what, I don't know, I don't remember what it was called, but it was used for itching. It's got like a little point on the bottom of it. It's a whittled piece of wood. I mean, I would go and use a knitting needle and so on. Women did shave certain areas because of the lice and the fleas. So, yeah. So there were different ways that women dealt with these things as we all deal with, things of our time period. Okay, Diane's giggling over there. Anybody that wants to know what that little joke was, she's more than happy to tell you in the kitchen. They would have had containers like this. And there is the maggot.
Oh, how sweet.
Henry. This would have been on the kitchen shelf. If you look at historic books, pictures, or even some historic shops, you'll see a jar that's usually blue and white. It will say leeches on it. And the leeches, they have their own container. Little bugger. Stuck. There he is. And then these containers would hold leeches. These were also used for travel. That if you were going to, as a camp followers were women who would follow their husbands. I wanted to set the stage a little bit about either their bodies or what they were going through. I want you to think about, you're at the kitchen table, the whole farm life, what we learned in the Revolutionary War, and people are doing the farming or whatever, and your man comes home and says, listen, I'm going. I want to fight for this cause. You're sitting there, either you're pregnant or you have one on your hip or you're nursing. What do you do as a woman? No, I'm serious. What do you do? Do you say you're going to follow them? Do you say that I'm going to meet you? Think about the logistics of that, just the logistics. Pardon me? You got to pack. For 12 kids or 2 kids or 1 kid, but I would assume that the person that was really traveling, I did not look up to see what the average age was of the woman that was willing to travel. The women that stayed home took starvation as a possibility. I mean, there's only so much you could do, but starvation only too, because the British were coming, and what were they doing? They were stealing your food. So starvation could be one. Love could be another reason why you're going to go. You're going to follow your man. You stay home in your homestead. The British are coming through. Rape. They're going to overtake you. You're a woman. You're young. They don't care. They've been on campaign for months. They want a woman. You take that risk. If you're in different areas, there's indigenous people maybe. There's looters. And you're by yourself with your children. Do you stay or do you go? I'm wondering what the discussions at the kitchen table were. I wonder about the fights. Think about the fighting. You all fight with your husbands, or they fight with you on those decisions that have to be made. And you are a woman. You have not the right to have an opinion on this. Quietly behind closed doors you might, but not in public. You have to go basically obey, and you're going to pretty much follow whatever your husband or that male person in your life is, father and so on. You're going to follow that because you're a woman. So some things have changed, some things have not changed. So you have to think about all of those things. Be in that moment of turmoil that you have to make that decision on what you're going to do. So let's play out one scenario. I'm 22 years old, again. I'm 22 years old, I have a child, I could be pregnant again, I'm definitely itchy. My man just left, and I've decided to stay because maybe it's winter time. And I'm gonna stay until spring. Better travel. How am I going to find them? How am I going to find? I mean, really, think about early America. Think about if somebody dropped you in the middle of Santa Mauritius, or wherever we are, Shirley, and said, we're close by, and said, I want you to go find somebody in Huntington. What would you do? And you have a child, don't forget, and you possibly are pregnant. What would you do? Find a Quaker. Find a Quaker, get a horse. But still, that doesn't tell about location. We don't have GPS, all those little Google things. How do we find that person? We follow the rings. How do you find the person? So there's different ways that they would follow. They would follow other units going. And when these groupings of men would leave their area, they left a trail. That's what men do. They leave stuff behind, their shoes, their socks, whatever. They leave a trail. So that would be a one way of following it. Or information from one stop to another stop to another stop to another stop. So now what are you going to do? Now you have to make the decision to go. You've made that commitment, you're going to go. Now what? Somebody tell me. What are you going to do? Somebody said it over here. You're going to pack. What are you going to pack? Don't forget, you're on your feet with a child, you're nursing, and you have to pack. You don't know if it's 1 day, 6 days, raining, cobblestone, grass, fields, trees. You have to go. You might get a basket. One of the items that was listed was a wool blanket. Anybody know why wool? Insulate. The fiber. Wool fiber is the only fiber that will insulate your body. If you are you're thrown overboard and you have a wool sweater on, it will help insulate against the cold. It will get wet, but it will insulate your body. Wool has the ability to to insulate. All right, what else? Another reason, wool. Opposite. It's waterproof. The lanolin, the fats in it, repel the water. Not totally great, but a lot better than not having, or say, linen. Okay, so the wool is going to protect you and your family. It can be made into a tent, you throw it over, it's going to protect you to some degree. All right, so my basket. And I have my wool blanket. The next item on there was a series of clothing. Bedgown, short gown, bedgown? Bedgown, which is like a lightweight jacket. That was my plan B if I couldn't get in the dress. All right, so we're gonna put that in. I'm not gonna be neat and fold. These are not skirts, ladies, these are called petticoats. They might have 2, 3 layers on. Yesterday I had 2 layers, I had it quilted, and then I had a linen one. This is a linen one. You might have 2 or 3 with you. Or they could have been wool, right? I didn't want to, this is a linen one that I have on, and I have a split dress on. So now is shift, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Shift. All right, basically it looks like a nightgown, kind of shift. This one has holes in it. I wore it to the point of no return. Put that in there. Haven't packed any baby stuff yet. Extra apron. A wool cloak. With a hood. It's going to keep me dry. It's going to keep me warm. I don't want to leave without my leeches. Or my maggots. Maybe something to eat in. What am I going to cook on or in? Problematic. What am I going to cook? There's no McDonald's. God bless you. No McDonald's. What am I going to cook? A soup or whatever. I have a cauldron that's a little bit smaller that's meant for traveling. I brought this for the more encampment when I get there. So a little cast iron cauldron maybe. Definitely bring these. Again, this is all done with research. No. Bring something for lighting. Oh, here. Lighting. I brought it. This is called either a cruiser or a Betty lamp. It's a very simple one. I could put oil or something in here, animal fat, for light. So I'm reading about what women did, hygiene and so on, and there was something in there called nipple shields. And at that moment, all I could picture was Wonder Woman or Madonna. And then I was like, well, you know what? I just read this stuff and I'm trying to decipher what. It's not the norm, but what is it? I didn't know. I had to look it up. So I'm looking at all of this, but think about then and then think modern terms, ladies. They would take lard, and you were nursing so much.
Oh, God.
And, well, you're nursing. There's no bathing like we know it today. And from a lot of nursing, you're cracked, you're sore. And these little ones, they were made out of wood, nettle, or ivory. And you would put the lard, which is animal fat from a pig, and you would coat that, and you would put it, and it would soothe your breast for nursing. So nipple shields, a lot of people had the nipple shields. So, put that in there, I don't want to leave without that. Now I'm still itching. What am I going to do with that, with the lice and the fleas? Nope.
Oh, you're going to coat them. I'm
going to coat my hair with lard. but I added vinegar to this. I thought it might be nice. So adding vinegar helps kill the lice and the lard. So, and it would not look as pristine as this. Anybody know how to render lard besides either Tony or Kimberly? Or Diane? It's fat. From what?
I said in a big vat.
Oh, in a big vat, yes. So first you gotta kill the pig. Then you have to get the fat. And what you do is you boil it, and you keep skimming off the meat product until it becomes this pure. Everybody do bacon? You all eat bacon. So you know that white stuff on top that kind of collects in your pan? In essence, that's kind of lard. You know, you use it for everything. But lard, this is clean. This is from Walmart. And lard has a really good shelf life. So lard was the lubricant of the day for many things, but they would smear it into their hair with powders and different ointments, and that would keep the bugs down. Also, it was very customary for, which I don't have, and I kind of get reprimanded on a regular basis, that I do not have a cap on. Women would have very long hair, they would twist it, they would braid it, or they would always have, basically I'm not dressed correctly. If anybody has some really technical dressing questions, ask Diane. She is really the authority on dress wear. So all of that's going on. By the way, this is a lard press. Once you've made kind of lard, what you want to do is you want to press the water out. But I brought that to show you that equipment and the things that you had to have for everyday working were big, they were cumbersome, and that might have been in a camp for the camp followers. So I haven't started traveling yet, by the way, just let you know on that. So I have this packed, I'm ready to go. Now we talked about how would I find my man. And say from here to Huntington. I get there. What is the average distance you could walk? Not even when I'm talking with the child. I'm just talking just in kind of general. I mean, I've watched moms try to get across the parking lot with a 2-year-old, and it's like they're all over the place. And that was at Marshall's with the sale. I've left Mastic Shirley. I have to go to Huntington. What is the average miles, plural, am I going to walk? I don't know, I got to look it up. About 15. So picture walking from the North Shore, William Floyd Parkway, which we all know, to the beach. That's about 15 miles. With a child, unpaved roads, through the trees, possibly the thought of a threat of the British soldiers, 15 miles was kind of the average. Some of the things that you would also pack, or you would, is some type of food. You'd have breads, you'd have dried foods. You might have something called pocket soup. Anybody know what pocket soup is besides Diane and Kimberly? Pocket soup. It's not, you're thinking of like kind of what we think of, but you're close. It's basically a bouillon. It's food, juices from meat that have been rendered down almost into a leather, where you could keep it in your pocket. You peel off a piece like a jerky, and you can put it in hot water. And it would be something that you could eat kind of on the run. And if you came across something, you could add into it. How often were my clothes washed? Never, but it was fairly infrequent. If anybody's interested, I'm doing a full washing demonstration, I think in June at Saginaw Coast Manor, where I'll be rendering the fat and doing the whole process. If anybody's interested in seeing that, you can see Phyllis on that. Bathing, full immersion. How often did I take like a bath? Not like a bath.
Every year.
Just a few times a year, you're right. It was called the dry bath. Think about the amount of wood and water that you would have to gather in order to submerge your body. Just think about it. Think about 1 gallon of milk that you're taking from the grocery store to your car, from your car to your house. You're holding it, and you need gallons of water to bathe yourself. Heavy, and you have to go to the lake or the river or pump it or however you're getting it. But yeah. The other things that you would gather into your basket, possibly salt, bread, dried goods. You could hitch a ride on a wagon. You could walk with others that are going in the same area to their spouses. Average 12 to 15 miles. We talked about that. Once you were in camp, then what? You're in camp. You're a camp follower now. You've left the farm, the safety of your house, and all of its good or bad parts. Now you're in this camp with hundreds of other people. I'm a woman. Yeah, maybe. Depends how much I like him on the end of the trip. Yes, I found him. Pardon me? You have to still be alert. There's a lot of men around. You're gathering with other women, but you have to serve your purpose. George Washington did not like camp followers, but he knew that if the women left, who's going to leave with them? The husbands. Women would write to their husbands begging them to come home. It was kind of a really balancing act. It was very, I can't even imagine. Some of the women stayed within camp enclosures, some of the women slept in tents, and so on. Anybody ever sleep in a canvas tent on wet ground? Kimberly, yes, we know. Yeah, wet ground, don't touch the tent because then you're going to have a leak. Diane regularly camps in Revolutionary War tents all the time, and the ground is wet, it's smelly, your clothes never really dry out, and when you leave a fire, you stink. You smell like smoke, and whatever fats, everything's cooked with these fats. It's being absorbed into your clothing and your skin and so on. So you'd have to gather the wood. You have to find the food. Women got half the ration, I believe it was half the rations that men would get. So whatever they're getting, you're only getting half. The main purpose of a woman being there is to do what? Use this. Did we say what this was? No. We did not. Besides Kimberly and Diane. Okay, what is it? It's for washing. It's an agitator. For washing. There are many homemade washers or agitators. This is an early one, and then you'd have to gather all this hot water. You'd have to soak them. It was, I think, called buck, where you would actually soak your clothing in what? To get the stains out. Urine. I'm so poor, I don't have a pot to piss in. Meaning that you did not have the means to purchase a pot because you could sell your pee. Urine, when it goes stale, it has ammonias in it. And believe it or not, it's a whitening agent. And when you start boiling in your clothes and stuff in it, it doesn't hold the smells that we were picturing, like the men's bathroom. So the urine was collected. So picture all of these guys in this camp, and you have to collect the pee. So you could do laundry and use this to agitate the clothing. And there were different parts. Soap in this time period is made from beef fat, which is tallow. Okay, it's made from beef fat. You have to have a container where you take wood ash and hay, and you allow water to move through. That gives you your lye water. So you have fat and lye water. But you have to make these things first. And then you have the big cauldron, and you put those two, and you're by the fire, and you have to stir it. And you keep stirring until it changes its consistency, almost like a thick pudding, like an applesauce almost. And then once that hits that sweet spot, it's put into molds and bricks, and then has to cure. So you can take that lye with your hands and start scrubbing all of those men's clothes, possibly their undergarments, that haven't been cleaned in a very long time because there's no toilet paper. Think about it. This is your main purpose of getting up in the morning. Is that you are serving a purpose, and once you serve a purpose, they can't get rid of you. Well, they don't want to get rid of you. You're the cooks. You're the menders. What are these uniforms made out of? Wool. You ever try to wash wool? You ever try to wring it out and get it dry? It's hard. It's a lot of work. So these women worked basically from sun up to sundown. They were responsible for, like I said, the wood gathering, the washing, the mending, nursing. People are coming back to camp blown up. Don't worry, she's got her leashes and her maggots. She's gone. She's good. And they have to sew up these people. And then they have to clean the linens because fabric, homespun fabric, against taxed linens coming in from England. They're going to make their own. That's where you get the word spinster, because the single women would really, because it was a horrible job spinning. Tony is a spinner. If anybody has any questions about spinning, spinning is hard. It's not easy, and you may spin a little thing like this. It's not going to get you a lot of fabric. It's probably going to be a piece that big. So all of these things are very complicated and time-consuming, but the women are responsible for that. Oh, don't forget that child that's still running around, and you're pregnant. Again, very, very difficult for women. Before you leave, if anybody's interested, pick up this pot and think about what it would feel like full of either water or food for many people. If you go in the cases upstairs, I was looking for my other Revolutionary War cooking things and I couldn't find them. I forgot, they're in the display case up there. This is a very common pot. And most of the dishes would have been, or meals would have been in kind of what we would consider stew. There would be a one-pot deal, and it would probably be cleaned every maybe couple days, and whatever somebody shot would be added into the next batch and just stirred and served up. Imagine the tummy issues on that one. Smaller camps. There's a whole bunch of different braziers. This is a brazier where you put coals in here from a bigger fire, and then you would put a smaller pot on here. This might be in an individual camp. It might be brought into a tent by the door if it's raining outside, but you could still heat something up by using a brazier. If you look at the lower case, the case on the lower shelf, there's two different ones. The one that looks like a bowl was the exact same one in the museum where George Washington, he owned one like that. And then there's one that they took a spring from a barrel and curled it, and coals would be dropped in there and a pot would be put on. Those are two up there. The most essential thing in any kind of cooking would be this. Anybody besides that group? What would this be? It's not pizza. They weren't eating pizza. You know why? They had no mozzarella. Coal, moving your coals around. The word hearth is the floor. If it has a fireplace, the firebox. But the floor is your hearth, and this would move your coals. The person who owned this hundreds of years ago, if you look, you see how it's curved? Isn't that cool? So they never used it this way. From consistent use, you can see it, it's turned. Can you see that? Isn't that neat? So a peel would have been at every fire kind of station or every fire. Griddles for roasting meat. Your meat would have been roasted with coals underneath, and trivets were important too because you could actually make another burner. You could move it, put a fire over here, put this over here, and then put your pot on there. So all of these are items that are really common in a colonial cook's kitchen. On the road, these are simple, and I could, with all of what I have here, as I could cook a full meal and not even blink with what I have here. I mean, I would need the food, but what? No, a spider is actually, it looks, but it would have a pan, like a pan. A spider is a pan that has like legs on it, like this. At the Catch 'em In, I have a couple different ones. Just as a side note, I studied with Dr. Alice Ross, and when she was ending her career, I was able to purchase some of her spiders. Really nice ones from the 1700s. When I do cook, I try to use implements from the 1700s, so that way it is authentic, and you get a really good experience with it. So that's kind of this here. So does anybody just want to take, I don't know, one person?
I can't imagine.
What?
I can't imagine.
Come on
And
up.
then oh God. Yeah, you don't have to imagine.
Right, don't worry if you drop it, okay? I just want you to just grab it, and this is something simple. This isn't even really packed. Now imagine that with a baby, you're pregnant, holding these pots. Now do this one? That's not the perfect basket, it's the one I had. Could you do a lap around the room? No. Pick this up.
Did everyone bring everything?
Not this size, no.
This is like when
Some had wagons, some did not have wagons, if you were lucky enough. So anyway, my point is that when you're reviewing history, it's great to look at paintings of these wonderful scenes. It's great to kind of look through the window.
Right.
But sit at the kitchen table and really think about what's going on. And then on top of it all, she's wearing all of this.
Yeah. No.
I don't know if that concept was really, I don't know if that was fun. But don't forget, they were only living to like 40 or 50, all right? Except for Kimberly. I think we're all pretty much above that. We're living 3 times longer now. So most women had several aprons. Mine is linen. Cotton doesn't hit the scene until a little bit later in time period. Everybody has linen. Linen is extremely durable. I can't even begin to tell you what this apron has gone through. This apron, also, if you notice, a lot of times you'll see people, and we tuck it over here. There's always a thought process that women all burn to death because their clothing were going up in fire. I shouldn't have taken. One moment, please. Okay. So there was a study done. Women really did not burn to death. I'm sure a few did, but not to the point where we think. So, when you drove here, how many of you made a conscious thought to turn your signal on? Or did you just do it? You just did it. Making a left, you hit it. When children are born, by the age of maybe 3, they're walking, they already know that fire is danger. By the time you get to be an adult or around that fire, you know it's dangerous and you know where your feet are. It's very important that as you're walking around, you just know. So anyway, so the apron is tucked. Now if I lean forward into the fire, my fabric goes back. If I lean forward, it tends to move this way. So aprons were kept pulled aside. It also allowed thickness if I had to grab something. But you'll see a lot of depictions and paintings with that apron, pulled over on the side. So that's the linen apron. Then I have my dress. This dress has no buttons holding it together. It has no zippers. It has a lot of pins. Which, by the way, if you get into a car in a colonial dress, you have to worry about your seatbelt and all these pins. And always make sure your car has gas in it long before you do this. So, again, Diane is the authority on this, not me, obviously. Everything, this stuff that you see me pulling out is called tape. It's not ribbon, it's a very, very durable, it's made with a little kind of tape loom, but it's extremely durable and thick, so they use it for everything during that time period. Moira wanted me to do this, like get dressed at the beginning of this. I said they'd still be there. Abigail Adams writes to John. John, she does this whole thing about the women, but she always said, don't forget the pins. Okay. All right. This is called a stomacher, and usually it gets pinned here, and then your dress can be adjusted. So you'll see these inlays of fabric on very fancy gowns. Do you have a really fancy one for your big gown, Diane?
I don't have a real silk gown. I am wearing a quilted stomacher, but the advantage is it gives you a little more room.
Right. It gives you, yeah, more room that you can expand this part of your dress. So now you have the dress, and by the way, it's 2 layers of fabric, could be, you know, quilted, whatever. It's heavy. You want it's heavy.
I believe it.
No.
Diane, you didn't tell us, demonstrate why you had it pulled up in the back.
Diane told me to do it.
I didn't.
When I purchased this, they have these beautiful buttons. I'm going to leave it out so anybody can look. They're gorgeous. I think it's just a style. I've seen them in some books. I don't think I've ever seen a reason for that draping in the back. But if you look, let me show you. Yeah. It has, and I can lower that, and then it goes straight.
Like a wedding dress.
Like it does, yeah.
I have heard recently, and I'm not sure if the other Diane is true, that a fancy dress you would pull up so that you didn't sit on it?
That could be, or because fabrics are more fancy dresses or more expensive fabrics, and you're dragging it on everything on the ground like this.
Also, you did that to be a little risque. You're showing underneath. If it was a real fancy dress, you're pulling up and you're showing another fancy fabric, showing your wealth, showing your style.
Yeah, I think those are all factors within this, but talk about being risque. I'm gonna take my scarf. Ta-da! No. Women always wore scarves. I'm sorry?
How can you breastfeed with all that on?
That's a story for another day.
One of the things that Diane showed you before was a bedgown. A bedgown is a loose-fitting garment where you do not need to wear stays on. Other garments, if you don't wear the stays,
It's at the bottom.
it doesn't give you the right
Silhouette.
silhouette, is the word.
Right, so this is called a jump. Diane probably has either a corset or stays on underneath of her dress, could you stand up, please? You see how no, like straight, there you go.
I'm too old to be straight.
So, there's her stomach area, but it gives her shape.
Stays in this time period, 19th century, it's corset.
Right, so it gives her, I was someplace yesterday and somebody said their outfit wasn't hanging right, but they didn't have structure underneath. If not, it's just kind of fabric that just kind of hangs. So the jump has
Working stays.
this is like when I'm doing a lot of lifting and you know, moving things around. Wait a minute, gotta keep going here. By the way, this is probably the last time I'm wearing this. I've cracked all the boning in it, and I've been using it for quite some time. I've gained weight, and it looks like really bad. Oh, there we go. Okay. So then, Jesus, like freaking spaghetti, like mozzarella cheese. Okay. But I need to tell you something, there is no need to do all of that, because ladies, I have no undergarments on. So my petticoat is now, I was worried about the nipple shields. Okay, so if you see how that skirt or that petticoat went, all right, so this one has a gather. Most of them are more structured. So if you were putting this on, oh my goodness, there's too many strings. It goes in order. So I'm going to take my pockets off. So these, oops. So these are pockets. These are very simple pockets. They're not great. But the pockets would go underneath my petticoat, and this is my pockets where I would put, not the car keys or my cell phone, but I would put cleaner, whatever. I would put some kind of item in there that I needed to get. And these fall off people very easily. They just kind of slide off and you kind of walk out of it and you don't even realize. Usually the fabric is heavier. But if I have to get into my skirt, I have to go back from the back this way. Then the front. And if you look at Diane's petticoat or any other petticoats, there's a slit here, which allows me to get to my pockets. So even if I have 3 petticoats on, those pockets are pretty much in line that you can get to them, or you put your pockets on right before you put your the top layer. Did you ever have a pin go into your gut? No, the pins are you can look. I want you to feel those pins. Trust me, there's a lot of times if you look at our clothing, there's like little blood spots because you're constantly pricking yourself with these pins. These are really thick. They're not that comfortable. They're comfortable now, but when I first bought them, they were very uncomfortable. But now, what was the mileage that I had to walk? 12 to 15 miles. In my shoes. In shoes. My buckles, these are very plain buckles. You got buckles on?
Yeah,
Plain. If these were very fancy and I had fancier shoes on, that might be basically my engagement ring. I could be betrothed because somebody gave me silver pretty buckles. That is also telling my wealth, my station, the buckles on my shoes. Garters can be fabric, they could be lace, but I have garters because what does not exist in this time period? Elastic. I have to keep my hose up. Most of the hose